Want access to the smartest people on the planet in digital, business, technology, and personal development? You've come to the right place. You're listening to Ryan Talks Digital, hosted by Ryan Chapman, guaranteed to make you smarter.
All right, we'll count this down. 3, 2, 1. Sam Perera, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Ryan. It's nice to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. It's great to catch up. It's been a long time since we've spoken. Just for history, so everyone knows our history, we worked together as part of a team, I don't know, about 18 months ago, 2 years ago now, something like that. It's been a while. It's been a while, but one of the best experiences of my life in terms of my working career. Sam is one funny guy and just brought a lot of life to what we were doing. It was great working with you, mate. So you've got a fascinating background. You started out as a software engineer, and you were a tutor at one stage. You were teaching people, and then you sort of evolved your career from being a software engineer to a Scrum Master, and now you're a delivery lead. Tell us your story. How did you end up being a delivery lead after studying out as a software engineer?
Yeah, in fact, that's a long story because, I just counted just this morning, right? I think I've been in the software industry and the product development space for almost 25 years. And I, in fact, started as a tutor because that was the same institute I ended up completing my higher studies. And then I got a part-time job as a tutor in one of the platforms that I later ended up becoming a software developer, which is the IBM AS400 system, which was called back then. But I think nowadays it's called the I-series. And it's a very highly commercial-oriented super mini computer, which is used mostly by the financial institutes like banks and insurance companies and whatnot. So yeah, I started as a tutor, and then I realized that that's not my cup of tea, because I always wanted to be a person who's in the action developing software. So, and then I started as a junior developer, and then I think what drove me to the point that I'm today is how I can make a difference more and more. How can I expand the scope of the people and the area that I touch, and the difference that I can make wider? So if you take my starting point as an engineer or a software developer, you'd write a program, right? So the point of difference is just a feature or a program. And then I moved on to a business analyst, and so I could expand that to a point where you can make a difference across a program or a project. And then then became a Scrum Master, because I realized that in order to make a bigger impact, you can start influencing more and more people by driving the processes that underlie that runs the entire delivery process. And then I realized it's even better to become a delivery lead, because that then, with all the experience that I've been gathering for the last 20 plus years, I could help an organization makes a big impact across the society, across the customer, so that they, the organization serve. That gave me a great platform to deal with the people and influence them, nurture them, and drive more outcome-focused deliveries.
You, like I said from the outset, you and I have worked together before, and it's the thing I found quite fascinating is that you started out as a software engineer. Now, I have this probably a little bit of a biased sort of opinion, or maybe a bias, I guess, around software engineers. And I see them as very solitary figures. They sit in front of a computer with their headphones on, listening to some cool ambient music, and they're off running throughout the day, just coding stuff. And very straight-laced, not really that exciting. But you're very different. You're not a stereotypical engineer in terms of when you started out, because effectively you're very much a people person. So you are a very warm, empathetic, engaging kind of person. So I think you've broken the mold when it comes to software engineers.
I think you're right, Ryan. I think it's probably because of the time that I spent as a tutor probably gave me that edge, because I started dealing with people first and foremost in a way that I had to make them understand. I had to listen to what they had to say, what they didn't understand, and what they did understand, right? And then I had to kind of convey the knowledge or the message that I had to convey in a particular way that, and depending on different students. And, I had students who were immediately soon after their college or high schools, and I had students who were like board of directors in certain, enterprise organizations. And I think that allowed me to develop that set of skill set to be, I don't know, I mean, be a bit more approachable and trying to understand where they're, what point they're standing in. So be a bit more empathetic and all the rest. And I think even when I moved on to this development space, I did not want to sit in front of a computer, putting my headphones on and, just going on a coding grind as they call it these days, right? And I think during my time, the coding or the development culture was a bit different as well, because nowadays the developers are more really focused on getting the code out and deploying the code, right? But for us, we had to still talk to certain end users, gather requirements by ourselves, and do a certain amount of solution designing as well. And that's when we managed to sit in front of the computer and just start coding. I think that helped me to develop that different kind of personality as well.
And it's interesting because, as I stereotyped engineers, software engineers, and that's not meant to disrespect software engineers. There are all sorts of software engineers, and we've worked with a variety of them. Some are introverted, some are very extroverted. It takes all sorts with any job. But I find it interesting that you see quite commonly in technology, you'll often see that people that are running kind of, big departments in technology or running divisions of technology have often ended up or often started out as software engineers, and they've started out as software engineers. And it's very apparent, a couple of years after doing it, that I don't think they've acknowledged they've made the wrong decision, but I think what they've realized is it's not for them to kind of work in that space. And they're much more of a people person, and their technical abilities there. So I understand the technical world, but their ability to lead people is a lot stronger. So they tend to sort of side towards that side of their strengths.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you're spot on there, because when you are a software developer, your career progression can take one of two ways. Either you get onto the business side and become more of a business oriented person, right? And then I think that's what I became, because I enjoy dealing with people. But on the other hand, if you're more of a person who like being in your zone and then delivering more and more sophisticated stuff, and that's where people become software architects and enterprise architects. And because rather than dealing with the business side and more with people, you go down the technology path and then becoming more and more entrenched in the overall enterprise implementation of the architecture.
So these days you're working as an agile delivery lead. What does agile delivery mean, and what does good agile delivery mean?
Great question. I think I will start with delivery, because delivery is handing down a particular outcome, right? Or set of outcomes that is of expected quality, the initial expected quality, on time, within budget, right? And that's the core of any delivery. I think the difference that I would like to draw between the old-fashioned delivery, where we had the waterfall method, and when we kind of progress towards agile delivery, is the quality bit, because you still want to focus on your budget, because you don't have a bottomless pit where you can dig money out, right? So you need to stick with the initial forecast, or as close as possible to that forecast that you initially did. At the same time, yes, you need to adhere to the times, because that's one of the reasons why we deliver a particular outcome, because people are waiting for that particular outcome. But the quality can be subjective, right? Because different, depending on the type of the product that you develop, depending on the type of people you work with, the organizational culture, the country that the business operates in, it can be very subjective. And this is where the agile delivery comes in my opinion, because that would mean that every time you deliver for two different reasons. One is you can start generating a revenue, because you're going to address a particular business requirement, and then you're going to meet customers' expectations. Number two is something that is more important with agile delivery, an opportunity to learn. That's what's really important to me, because rather than going on a waterfall kind of a project for 2, 3, 4 years, what you do is you kind of figure out, okay, guys, these are the things that we need to deliver, but what's the most important thing, or what's the most uncertain thing? Then let's just focus on that particular uncertain item, get what we think is going to work out, and then use that as an opportunity to learn. And then you can come back and then pivot or adapt and or change the way that you work or you deliver, or even the problem that you initially thought, because it could be a case where you have anticipated the entire problem incorrectly. So that early validation, that the opportunity to get the early validation from an agile delivery is the key. And that's why I like that, chunking it up down to smaller deliveries, and then getting that iteration going in a nice cyclic rhythm is the key for successful agile delivery. And then having that open mindset to look into the results of what's happening in the market with the things that you have already delivered, and keeping that feedback loop happening, because you need to keep on adjusting as you go with the lessons you learn.
There's that expression that change is a constant, and that's very true when it comes to agile. And you and I have both been agile practitioners for a long time now. What do you think the future of agile is? What will agile look like? Agile delivery, that is, look like in 5 years from now?
So agile has been there for the last 20 years, right? 20 plus years. The first manifesto was written back in 2001, I think. So it's been there for a while. I think what has happened, I think I can only predict or can envisage what's going to happen in the next 5 years based on what I see has happened in the last 20 years. I think when it comes to agile maturity, there are 3 stages that teams or individuals or even organizations, right, go through. It's the same typical that Shuhari thing. So at the very start, yes, if you have been doing things in a particular way, you will hire an agile coach or someone who knows the theory, and then you'll start learning the agile principles, the values, all those ceremonies that comes along with it, right? Perhaps even a particular framework that you would like to adapt. And then as you go through, you realize, okay, this is perhaps not the only way to do agile. There are certain other ways that we can do agile. Okay, rather than start with Scrum, but then you realize Scrum is not the most appropriate. Maybe you can start with a mixture of Kanban and Scrum, right? So you get into the ha stage, and then the re stage is where you get really mature. So you are learning agile in Shu, you are doing agile in Ha, but the re moment is the paramount moment for me, as far as I'm concerned, is where you start being agile. So you are not confined by certain framework or certain ways of doing things. You have that mindset to kind of understand, going back to that same agile delivery, right? How can I fine tune my delivery pipeline so that I can understand the problem as best as possible? What are the things that I could engage in order to understand my customer's problem as best as I could? How can I fast track? How can I optimize my delivery process? The design, the build, the deployment, testing and deployment process as much as I could. And then what sort of mechanisms and what sort of measurements that I would put in place in order to learn, for me to learn, and then, create that feedback. So that's, for me, is being agile. And I don't really care, to be honest, Ryan, whether you engage, I don't know, whether you practice Scrum or Kanban or any other methodology, as long as you can live those agile values. Because end of the day, what we're trying to do is, how can we get the best possible outcome for our customers as quickly as possible? Because if we don't do that, then either somebody will beat us for that, or to that, or the customer will go somewhere else, or will not use us at all, or our services. So agile maturity is, to me, becoming lean, understanding the core, going back to the basics of delivery, and then using a simple set of tools and methodologies in order to fine tune your problem identification, converting that problem, translating that problem into a possible solution, and accepting that that particular solution is not going to be perfect on day one, and have a framework around that solution in order to continuously learn, so that you get that continuous information back to your design and build phase, you can continuously optimize. And if you can align those activities in order to create that feedback loop, I think to me that's agile. And as teams mature, I think every organization, in my career, I have gone through agile transformation at least 4 times. And you can see it's an ongoing trend. More and more organizations getting on with agile transformation. So we will get to a point that yes, the entire industry is practicing agile, and then it will create those conversations, cross pollinations, and different ideas, how people solve a particular problem and how where they face challenges, and that cross pollination will come. And I think industry as a whole will get more and more matured. And my dream is that where the entire industry is being agile rather than learning or doing agile.
Good point. One of the things I see, and I guess it sort of gets me thinking about this, is the risk, I guess, to agile, because we have this beautiful methodology, which, as you said, it's sort of broken down to different individual methodologies, whether it's Kanban or Scrum or Scaled. Is particularly in the digital space where we work, there is unbelievable demand at the moment to get digital features shipped. And there's a number of kind of reasons for that, but I think it's the confluence between COVID-19 and what we've seen in the pandemic, and this obviously massive shift towards everything being in the digital world, which was always trending that way anyway. But I think COVID-19 gave it a bit of a kick along. But I think the challenge there with that is that from an executive perspective, they kind of know that agile is important, and they hear about it, and they understand it's a methodology that we use for delivery and delivering quality products well, and it keeps sort of teams together and works really well. But I think the challenge they face into is they want it done quicker. They want things built quicker. They don't want people sort of sitting, 2-week sprints building this stuff. They want it in 1 week. What do you think about that?
I think that's classic stakeholder management, right? I mean, with Agile, something that came along with that is increased transparency. So if you look at a physical wall that's in one of the meeting rooms, or even the Jira digital board or a Trello board, or for that matter, right? It doesn't matter what tool you use. It can be as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. The underlying going back to your previous question, right? I mean, are you going to use a tool for the sake of using that tool because some agile framework says so, or are you using that tool because you are going to address a particular concern? Coming back to your point, management wants things done quickly. Now, using a board is going to help you do that, because it's going to visualize, it's going to make that information readily available to whoever wants to know what's going on. So I think you got to understand what the people, the leadership at the top is feeling anxious about as well, right? They are worried about two factors, the cost associated with what you're going to deliver and the timeline. And they get even more anxious and nervous when they don't know what's happening underneath on the ground level. So the only way we can manage or improve and help us, is to make that current what's going on right at the moment on ground level more visible. So to increase the transparency, have a board, have these. So that's why we do demonstrations, showcases, or sprint reviews regularly, because it's not just for the team, right? We bring our stakeholders, we tell them, guys, this is what we did. So they appreciate, okay, so it's not like this entire team sat at a corner of the building twiddling their thumbs for the last two weeks, right? While the sprint was in play. They did these things, and then they did face these particular challenges, perhaps with test environments, perhaps dealing with third-party suppliers, perhaps trying to get a security clearance for whoever wanted to come into the office and work. It could be anything. And that's the opportunity for the team to highlight all these challenges and the wins that they achieved during the sprint. And that kind of gives that level of certainty, level of predictability, because management likes certainty and predictability. And with Agile, something that they lost was that, yes, It wasn't to say that with waterfall method or they did have that sense of predictability and certainty, but it was a sense of false predictability and what's the word, predictability and consistency. With Agile, we started making it into chunks, and then you started delivering it iteratively. But with that, what happened was that visualizing, we don't have that huge Gantt chart anymore, right? So we need to, as long as we have a way to kind of convey, keep them informed with the progress, I think you can get their buy-in, you can get their cooperation, you can in fact start getting their support to get your teams unblocked on certain critical areas. Because I know with my experience, whenever we reach out to them and tell them that, guys, this is the reason why we could not do this, the first thing that they say is that, why didn't you tell me before? And that's a classic aha moment, right? Yeah. So make it available, make it visible to them as quickly as possible, because what their role is to unblock us, so that they know that as long as we are unblocked, we'll keep on delivering, we will achieve our business outcomes.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I don't want to generalize, but I find generally from my own interactions with executive leaders, they get it. I think if they put themselves in your shoes, and you need to get them to put themselves in your shoes by doing showcases, by making your backlog transparent, by actually showing what you're building, they get it, because they've been in that kind of role, those kind of roles previously themselves to some extent. So they kind of understand the mechanics of delivering things. But I think sometimes in their world, it's a bit challenging to kind of connect their world with the world of delivery when they get more senior. So I think the themes that you're talking about, sort of showcasing and transparency, are really critical for helping them come along for the journey as well, and being a part of that build of whatever it is you're building as a product. I think that's really important. We're going to change gears a little bit now. And I want to ask you a question. What's important for you in your life?
Ooh. I think I've lived long enough to realize what's really important in your life is your family. I think, because, with all the challenges that I have faced in my career, in my life, I think what's one thing, if I reflect back and, look back and reflect on, is what one thing that has been consistent is the support that I've had from my family. So that's important. So you need to look after your family. And if work gets in the way, yes, I think that's a fair call that you choose your family. And I would like to extend that to the next level, Ryan, because to me, as much as we have our obligations to family, we have obligations to our wider community, your friends, your colleagues that you work with, and in the wider society. So I think what's important is looking after family and doing what's extending that same concept to look after what's around you, who's around you, and then doing the right thing by them.
What about Nando's?
Well, mate, Nando's, starting with family. If you want to have a good time, take your family to Nando's, right? And then
Those that don't know, Sam and I actually love Nando's chicken. So we always talk about our next, whenever we catch up, we're going to do Nando's, because we're both fans. Although I will say that I am the stronger Nando's eater, because I go for the extra bloody hot, whereas Sam doesn't take it up to that level, do you? You go the hot, I think.
Yeah, I mean, because I think you're more used to your wasabi, right, than I have, So I am. So, it's a fair call that you can go up all the way up to the, super spicy, whereas I'll operate at a lower gear.
One of the challenges you touched on, which is, when you prioritize family, is finding that balance between family life and work, and even just getting time out for yourself as well as a person, because obviously that's important as a human being. What do you think is the secret to finding balance between work and life outside of work?
Interesting question. The other day I don't know whether I read it or I heard it. They said that let's not call it work-life balance. Let's call it work-life integration. The reason is, when you say balance, it almost gives you the impression that they're competing forces. They're competing priorities. You need to get one right weight against the other. But if you look at work-life integration, it's a continuous flow where you constantly switch between your work obligations and your personal and family obligations. And I think what the pandemic showed us during the last couple of years is that yes, the family is important and the work is important, but then how can you, especially with remote working, right, where this office life and the home life line is blurred so much. How do you keep that going? Because there are kids at home, there are things that you need to do. You need to look after your household stuff. I think, again, going back, transparency is the key. If you can set the expectations within your family members as well as your team members and your boss and your leadership, and I think that will allow you to balance the work life and your personal life much better, because you're sort of on a single continuous day activity. You start with certain things and you know what you need to do. You have your work obligations, you attend to that, and then you can plan ahead. I think planning is another thing that's pivotal. You need to plan ahead because you need to know what time you're going to take your kid to swimming or to tennis or whatnot, right? And you need to know what's your next sprint goal, and if your team is blocked, if there's anything that you need to do in order to talk to some other people, and what's the time availability with this remote working. Everyone's working from everywhere, and then you have team members scattered across the world. So you need to plan ahead to catch the right person at the right time. And communication is the key. So if you can keep on communicating, right? Okay, I have this particular thing that I need to take my son or daughter to this place. But at the same time, if you can tell your family members that, guys, today I won't be able to take you to tennis, we'll have to arrange an alternative option, because I need to talk to this team member who's based in Manila or in London, because that's the time zone that I need to deal with. So looking at as a continuous timeline where you have official activities as well as personal activities, and planning ahead as much as possible, right? It's not set on stone. Things can change at any time. But with planning, communicating to all these people, I think that's the best you could achieve when it comes to that balance.
It's a very similar concept to what Jeff Bezos talks about as well, and he specifically says that the work-life harmony thing, and I'm quoting him here, is what I try and teach young employees and actually senior executives at Amazon too. And he says that he gets asked about work-life balance all the time. And his view is it's a debilitating phrase, because, and I agree with him on this, because it implies there's a strict trade-off between work and life, as if they're mutually exclusive. And so his philosophy around this is, if I'm happy at home, I come into the office with tremendous energy. And if I'm happy at work, I come home with tremendous energy. You want to be that person who has that flexible mindset to kind of keep both their workplace happy, but also their personal life and their social life and their family life happy as well. And I think, to your point, it's all about that sort of flexible mindset. And I think a lot of organizations have really taken that on board. I mean, ANZ, where I work, is fantastic when it comes to flexibility. They really understand that, they obviously want to get things delivered, and we do a fantastic job of getting things delivered, but they also respect the autonomy at times that people should have around deciding how they get that delivery happening. And there are times, like you said, where you might have to sort of, drop off and pick up your children from school, for example, and that's the time you're unavailable, but you're back on afterwards doing some work. But it's really about the individual. And I think the key message there is there's no sort of fixed formula around this stuff. It's really down to the individual to figure out what works best for them, but be transparent and clear about it as well.
Absolutely. And I think I missed mentioning this when it comes to delivery, but something really, really key to me is happy teams. I think whether it was Richard Branson or someone, I can't remember the actual person who said that happy teams deliver better results. So keeping teams happy is your best chance to achieve all those three objectives, like meeting the quality, the time, and the budget.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that Jeff Bezos is renowned for is he acknowledges that meetings need to happen, but he's also averse to overload, tsunamis of meetings that we seem to have these days, which I think is interesting to hear that from a CEO who no doubt is swamped with meetings all the time. On a similar topic, remote working. Since COVID-19's kicked in, we've seen this massive paradigm shift. It's like a tectonic shift in the Earth's plates when it comes to how we work. And it's, there's some elements of work-life balance associated with this, or work-life integration, as you put it. But firstly, do you think the way we're doing remote working is here to stay?
Yes, the short answer is yes. Because I think for those companies who did not, I mean, before the pandemic, there were some companies, mostly in the tech sector, with the right tech and the tool set. People had that opportunity to work remotely and flexibly. But the pandemic, what it did was it gave that kick that certain other organizations who did not trust their workforce to work remotely, they did not have a choice. They had to get their workforce up and running remotely. And guess what? After a while, they realized that the work continues. That people still are productive. Maybe they had a dip at the beginning, but then after a while, it got back to where things were, or if not even more. So I think what organizations need to understand going forward is that the cultural shift that we need. One is the leadership cultural shift, where you continue to trust your team members to be equally productive, although you don't see their screen or monitor or what they're doing in the same building, right? And I think and onto that, providing the right tool set, all this remote working software, increasing the bandwidth that you have into your operating environments, increasing the capacity of the software products that you use inside the on-premise, and scale your application so that they can continue to respond as people all over the world connect. I think the second thing that I also wanted to highlight is the cultural shift of your own team members, because previously I could reach out to you, Ryan. I could tap on your shoulder and say, hey, mate, I need this. I'm blocked, right? But now I can't do that because I'm not working with you across the table. I have to, the best that I could do is to call you on your phone, or, perhaps a Slack message or a Teams message. But then when I ask something, or when you ask something from me, then I need to be equally responsive that, here, Ryan's asking something from me, because unless I get back to him, he's blocked. So going back to those being agile values, right? So you need to be collaborative. You need to be empathetic, and we are working together, because it's unlike those days. We are not working in silos. We, as a team, we are all working towards a single sprint goal. And if I know that you are blocked, I have to consider it as, it's my own sprint goal which is in jeopardy as well. So it's my responsibility to make sure that I respond to you as quickly as possible, considering the fact that you can't tap on my shoulder. The only way that I could do is for me to be, voluntarily responsive, and that entire cultural shift needs to be there. Otherwise, what's going to happen is this friction is going to, come up, and the cracks will start appearing, and it might not be the most friendly environment to work with in. So that cultural shift, now that we have proven the tech works, the processes work, the cultural shift is the most the most time consuming change in any change process, but we have to be mindful and then keep on pushing through as well.
I think there's a huge opportunity for anyone in technology. And I caught up with Navdeep. Remember Navdeep Singh? And for those that haven't checked out the episode on Ryan Talks Digital, make sure to check out the catch up I had with Navdeep Singh. And we spoke about one of the things he's very excited about is Metaverse, which is Facebook's kind of new virtual reality world. And one of the things I'm very bullish about is the concept of virtual reality kind of working environment. So basically, if we're working together and we're in a virtual context, we can't be in an office together, whether it's because of just different days that we're working, whatever it is, or whether it's because there's another COVID-19 lockdown. The ability to actually connect in a virtual world. So it's almost like you're actually in a virtual office. And I think, this is where smart people who can identify these opportunities in terms of the evolution of remote working can step in and use the technology that's emerging as well to create potentially the workplaces of the future, which maybe I'm being a little bit futuristic here, could be a virtual workplace. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And with every change comes the challenges where, because whether it's efficient or more efficient or less efficient, people are comfortable with the current status quo all the time, right? And with all these changes, what happens is we need to push people from their comfort zone, keep on pushing the envelope. So managing that change is the key. And having that change in a sustainable pace is also another key, and getting their buy-in. And I can see that happening because, I mean, like you said, technology companies are the forerunners of when it comes to these kind of initiatives. But sooner or later, it trickles down across other industries, and other industries adopt that as well. It's I think what I would think in that context is how well the user experience is going to be. Because if you're constantly struggling with, I don't know, flickering screens, or less bandwidth where you need to keep on disconnecting and reconnecting and all that. If you can get the tech sorted, if you can get the buy-in from the people who are going to work with, and then have that correct mindset, because obviously we'll have to change our habits as well. But yes, I can see that working.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I think it'd be great. We could be doing Ryan Talks Digital with you virtually.
Yeah, I'll be able to give you a virtual tap on your shoulder.
Yeah, we can eat Nando's virtually as well.
Well,
we can order Uber Eats. It gets delivered during the virtual reality session. Here we are eating our Uber Eats Nando's and chin wagging like this. I know from having worked with you that you take a lot of pride in your work and the quality of what's produced, and obviously supporting the teams that you work with as well. How do we create legacy in our work?
Ooh. So to me, legacy is leaving a place better than how you found it. So I mean, it's not just about work. I think you can use the same metaphor. When you go to a beach, would you leave the beach in a cleaner state than you found it? When you go to a park for a barbecue or a picnic or whatnot, would you leave that in a better place than you found it? So to me, yes, leaving the place better than you found it. So if I were to transform that, adapt that in a working environment, how well did you delivered your outcomes, right? And how healthier your teams became, how happier they became, how much knowledge they ended up increasing during that time, what sort of processes that you put in place where people felt like coming to work, turning up to work in the morning, and to your point, how Jeff Bezos mentioned, how happy they left work at the end of the day, looking forward to starting the work tomorrow, the next day. I think if you can get to that point, I think you have left a legacy. In my opinion.
We all have role models in life. When I was growing up, Superman was my role model. I'm not sure who it was for you. I'm guessing it was Batman for you, but
you guessed it right. Yes.
When it comes to your life today, who do you look up to? Who's your role model?
Well, I would say I look up to role models. I don't have like one person. I think I learn from many different people when it comes to many different strong points, because I mean, I'm not perfect. I don't think anyone's perfect. So I think you get to see different strong points from different individuals based on their personalities and what they do within the context of the society. From my viewpoint, I look up to people like Simon Sinek, because he's one of the greatest motivational speakers. What he says is really makes sense, and then I like those short snippets of talks that he does. Another person that I really look up to is Jeff Patton, because his book allowed me to kind of understand how we can break down that initial stage of requirement, that what I said at the very beginning, how well can you understand the business problem? And he has written a book about it, story mapping, and that gave me so much insights. I think that's the best chance you can have to understand the problem. So there are a couple of people like that, and other than that, Ryan, I think I even treat my inner circle of friends as my role model, because they are the people who I interact with more. I get to see how they deal with their everyday life challenges. how they deal with their family members, kids, friends, and all that. So yeah, those I mean, by looking at them, by bouncing on my ideas, I think I learned a lot. And yeah, I would like to say that I learned from everyone.
It's a good philosophy. I agree. I think if I kind of take the same approach with my own life as well. I think there are some outstanding political leaders of the past that have had to deal with crises, and the way they've navigated through crises has been remarkable, because I just don't know if I would have been able to get through it the way they would have. So people like Winston Churchill, for example, when the United Kingdom was in its darkest hour, being able to keep hope and a flame of democracy and a light for Europe, that there would be light at the end of the tunnel for what was a terrible time in Europe's history during the Second World War. Even sort of Franklin D. Roosevelt, so FDR, in terms of his own personal conviction about World War II and what had to happen there as well. I sort of look back on political leaders and kind of go, for the crises they had to face into, the fact that they stood strong and they were very assertive with their positions on things would have taken a lot of courage. So yeah, for me, those are the sort of the role models I look to, people that have had to deal with crises and how they've, emerged through them and survived and prospered. But I agree with you. I think there's a lot to be said for learning from the people around you as well. So if you're one of the things I believe in is if you're in a room and you're the smartest person in the room, or you're in the wrong room, because effectively you need to be in a state of constant learning. And that means you need to get out of your comfort zone and expose yourself to different people, kind of like what this whole Ryan Talks Digital is all about. It's an important thing for your professional and personal growth. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. When you sort of, it's osmosis, you're around other people and you absorb their ways of thinking, the ways that they do things, and learn from it as well. Now let's talk about something very topical here. As we all know, you're an agile delivery lead or a product delivery lead, and I'm a product manager. Do you think there's ever going to come a time when product delivery leads will take over the world and product managers will be irrelevant?
No, absolutely not. That's a great question, Ryan, because, delivery lead is fairly, both these roles, for that matter, right? They're fairly new. I think people are still learning. It's not like, all those professions that have been there for years and years, like, project manager or a developer or a tester, right? Or a doctor, for that matter. These two roles, I think people are still learning, but what are their roles and responsibilities? And to add to the mix, these roles were created in an era where Agile came into effect. And then we started realizing that, rather than having a single set of skills, you are supposed to be cross skills. You're a T-shaped person. So, and because of that, you can see these two roles. I would like to consider these two roles as the two sides of the same. So in order for the coin to roll forward, both these sides need to work in synergy. And you can see there are crossovers. I think that's where, again, that agile mindset comes into the picture, because if you think that, oh, this is my job, no one else is supposed to do this, or on the vice versa, okay, this is not my job at all, why should I even bother doing this, right? If you're on that mindset, yes, you might be doing agile, but you're not being agile. But if you say that, no, I will help my product manager, or I will help my delivery lead in order to keep this coin rolling forward, and I will not be constrained by my own ego, that even if I see if the other person happens to do something that is in my skill set or my duties and responsibilities for the betterment of broader good, for the team, because we are trying to deliver something. That's the best. The short answer is no, because the delivery lead is all about answering the how and the when. How are we going to solve the problem? What are the things that we need to put in place in order to get the best outcome? And lining up, the events, the activities that you need to do in order to optimize your delivery pipeline. So how and the when. Whereas the product manager is all about the what and the why. Let's understand the problem. What's my customer segment? Because society is a very vast place. You can't solve problems for everyone. You need to understand who are your target audience, whose problem you're going to solve, what is the problem you're going to solve, and why. I think that's even more important, because for a person who's on the delivery lead role will not have the time or even the core skill set to answer those two questions. More importantly, the why, because it's that level of deep empathy that a product person has, product manager, We'll invest so much time dealing with the end users, talking to them, understanding their pain points, the friction points, what their aspirations are, and then trying to come up with an empathy map or a story map just to understand this is the problem and this is why we need to do, guys, because hey, if you're being agile, your team gets excited the more they understand why they're doing what they're doing, not because someone's telling them this is what they have to do.
So you don't think product managers are going to become extinct?
No. I think they will evolve. They will evolve to a point that they will get more and more involved. I think what we need to look at is giving us the best chance of understanding the problem that we are going to solve. If you look at the current world status quo, Ryan, I think we have mostly solved the needs, right? I think we are going into the territory of the wants, and that good old saying that the mother of every innovation is a need. But now, if you have fulfilled the set, all the basic needs that people have, safe shelter, communication, and all these basic facilities that they need to have, like electricity, water, and whatnot. But when it comes to the wants, that gets more complicated because people aspirations are different. So I think that is where the product managers will have a pivotal role, a key role to play, because you need to develop that level of sensitivity to understand, to talk to them, and then read in between the lines. What's the unsaid? What are the things that the customer wants, but he or she is not verbalizing it, and tap into that gap is the next innovation, because that's what's going to sell. Because I remember Steve Jobs famously said that customers don't know what they need. So that sums it up really well, because if you can understand what customers don't understand about themselves, you're the best product manager that anyone could wish for.
It's interesting because as you're talking about that, there's another quote that he talks about where he was having a terse exchange, I think, with someone in the audience that sort of suggested that Steve Jobs didn't know what he was talking about when it came to something he was working on. And Steve Jobs' response to that was, sometimes you can only please some of the people some of the time. And he's exactly right. I mean, if customers don't know what they want, there's a golden opportunity for talented product managers and software engineers and delivery leads and obviously user designers and user design researchers, etc., to come up with some wonderful things. So I'm glad to hear that I won't be out of a job in a hurry, at least.
No, not. I mean, even in the age of this artificial intelligence, right? Where we are in the process of automating. Even there are certain robots that can write a piece of code now. It's got to that point. You can automate your testing. You can automate your deployment. But talking to a user, you're talking to a customer, understanding their aspirations, I don't think you can ever automate that.
So the robots are taking over the world. We're all out of jobs. It's a catastrophe. Now, we're encouraged these days in our workplaces, which is very different to when I started working, to bring our full selves to work. So to bring yourself to work, and if you love to wear flamboyant clothes, wear flamboyant clothes at work. If you love to grow mushrooms, talk about the fact you love to grow mushrooms. And I'm talking about mushrooms you eat, not the mushrooms that people take for other purposes there. Do you think that authenticity is overrated?
I don't think it's overrated, Ryan. I think it's misunderstood. Because to your segue there, right? I mean, yes, if you like mushroom, talk about mushroom, right? If you like bright color shirts, wear them. That's fine. But end of the day, I think what you need to figure out, what you can't avoid, is that you operate in a society, and so when you bring your whole self to the office, you got to ask yourself that, okay, am I going to bring, as in like all the bad things about me as well? Because we are not perfect, right? We have our, imperfections. So are you going to bring your annoyed self? Are you going to bring your boasting self? Are you going to bring your, untidy self? So those are the things you got to think, because as much as you got to be authentic and truthful to yourself, and they encourage you to bring your whole self to work, I would say that better bring your best self to work. And then again, like with every agile delivery, it's a constant learning curve, right? So you try to improve your delivery process by looking at where things are not perhaps the best and trying to learn from the lessons. Same goes to the individual as well. Constantly evaluate, self-reflect, self-inquire. Like, what are the things that perhaps you are not doing well? What do you do that tips others around you off? Turn them off, and then constantly work on yourself. I think if you do that continuously, you will not have to worry about bringing your best self, because you'll be working on your not so good bits, and they will more or less become less and less. And then you can just focus on bringing your whole self, because there's no bad bits to it.
So I'll make sure not to bring my my cranky temper to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about give and take, Ryan. To me, I mean, someone once told that in order for me to have my own human rights, someone else need to fulfill their responsibility. So it goes both ways. I need to fulfill my own set of responsibilities to protect you, so that you can protect your human rights. So if I become abusive, because that's who I am, I'm not protecting you're losing your own human right to be in a safe space, right? So I have to be mindful about those responsibilities, so that I protect your human rights, or your rights, and you have to be equally responsible towards me, so that I can feel safe and secure as well.
I think for those of us that work in digital, I think there's actually a hidden benefit for authenticity as a mindset and an approach that we bring to the work that we do every day. And one of the fundamentals in digital, and it should be for any sort of product field, for example, is the need to be empathetic towards those that you're building solutions and products for. So we talk about customer obsession, but you can only obsess about the customer if you really understand them. And I think the mindset is, if you can encourage people to be bringing their full selves to work, they can be authentic. It relaxes them to the extent that they're actually more empathetic towards not only being kinder to themselves and allowing them to express themselves freely, but also understanding others as well. And when you get that sort of mindset, that culture in place, I think the idea of empathy and being able to sort of design solutions that really understand the people that we're designing them for becomes quite apparent as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about the brain power as well, because if you're constantly utilizing certain percentage of your brain power trying to be someone who you are not, you're only left with another percentage of brain power in order to do your work, right? But then on the other hand, if you don't have to utilize that brain power on trying to pretend to be someone else, you can utilize your entire brain power to solve your customer problems. You can be obsessed on the other person or the customer that you're trying to serve.
Yeah. Now, you've experienced a lot of life, and you've got a lot of life still to experience, but what have you learned so far? What's the most important thing you've learned so far in your life?
That not everything is under your control, right? I think, that's what it is. Because in my career, I've undergone I've undergone a redundancy once, and I was stepped down once. So I've lost my job twice without for no reason or no control of my own. So and those two times, I think it gave me so much perspective, because I think I did my job to the best of my ability, and it was the extrinsic circumstances that led to those kind of scenarios, right? And there's no point in dwelling on those, and the sooner you realize that the things that are around you are not all under your control or your influence, so you can start letting things go. I think that makes you a more relaxed, more happier person, and that again makes you a more authentic person as well.
That's good. That's good. It's also a bit of a Buddhist thing, isn't it, as well, that that the idea that the world is chaos, and we can only observe it and not necessarily play a role in contributing to its chaos. And I think one of the points you raised earlier is the mindset of you want to sort of make a difference in the world, contribute to this world, and if you're coming to work, for example, with all the bad parts of you, that's maybe not helping the world. So at the same time, you've got to be sort of cognizant of the fact that you can't control the world, but at the same time, you can make a contribution to make the world a better place by, obviously showing some self-control as well. 2022. It's on the horizon. We're not far away. We're about 4 weeks. It's the 1st of December today when we recorded this, but we're about a month away before we get to the new year. And we all had high hopes for 2021 being a year of freedom and no lockdowns and no COVID-19 and back to the world we had before of traveling and freedom everywhere. So not going to lock you into this, but 2022 is looming. What's on the radar for you? What's got you excited for next year?
Oh, traveling. I think I want to travel and resume my traveling because I've not been able to travel for the last 2 years, right? And I wanted to travel around the different countries around this region. So I think I'm looking forward to that. But then again, this little thing.
Yeah, well, this is fantastic because I hear that Coldplay are actually looking for a new drummer. So you're going to audition. That's what you were telling me before off air.
That's really interesting. You should say that because one of the songs that I'm trying it's really hard because I'm fairly new to the world of drumming. Although I had the passion, I wanted to play drums. I never got a kit of my own. One of the Coldplay songs, Paradise, it has one of the best beats that I like. But then it's complicated. I don't think it's the most complicated beat, but it's for my skill set, it's complicated. So yeah, 2022, I wanna get better at drumming because that's one of the good stress busters, right?
Sounds great. I think the next time we catch up and we'll do another one of these is we're going to get you to play some songs. We're going to take, for anyone out there that's watching this, leave some comments. If there's specific songs you want Sam to play at our next interview, we'll get Sam working on it so he can practice now so that by the time we record this next one, he's ready to go.
All right. Take the challenge.
Sounds good. Sam Perera, all-round nice guy and agile delivery lead. Thank you for your time today. It was great to catch up.
Thank you very much, Ryan. It was a great pleasure talking to you on these different topics. I remember our chats while I was working with you back then as well. So this is like one of those moments that I managed to get my brain stimulated, and it's so refreshing to talk about these things. And thank you for having me.
That's good. And let's catch up for some Nando's soon.
Lovely. Sounds like an idea.
Catch you soon. See you, Sam.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning in for this episode of Ryan Talks Digital with my guest, Sam Perera, Agile Delivery Lead. What do you think of the topics we spoke about today? Do you think that Agile Delivery makes a difference when it comes to crafting great products? What about the future of Agile Delivery? What trends and opportunities do you think will happen? And when it comes to product management, do you think that product managers are irrelevant? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you like this episode, make sure to click on the thumbs up and also subscribe if you'd like to watch other shows like this one. And if you know people that are just as interested as you in getting smarter, then make sure to share this episode with them. Whether it's your friends, your family, or your next door neighbors, they will love you for it. I guarantee it. As always, keep safe, and I'll see you in the next show.